She was sleeping in 8A when the cabin lights dimmed, her forehead resting gently against the window, breath slow and even, as if the sky itself had wrapped her in a quiet promise. The soft vibration of the aircraft hummed through her bones, familiar in a way that felt older than memory. Her jacket was folded across her lap, boots tucked carefully beneath the seat, laces double-knotted out of habit rather than need. Nothing about her posture asked for attention, and yet there was something unmissable in the stillness she carried, like a calm lake hiding a deep current beneath its glassy surface. The flight had been uneventful until then. People whispered, scrolled, dozed, and waited. A mother bounced her infant gently, whispering songs that barely rose above the engine's steady rhythm. A college student stared at lecture slides with glazed eyes. An elderly man traced the outline of a photograph tucked inside his wallet, his lips moving silently as though practicing words he might never say aloud. It was an ordinary cabin filled with ordinary lives, stitched together for a few hours by shared altitude and recycled air. Then the tremor came. Not violent at first, just enough to lift a few heads and pause a few conversations. The seatbelt sign chimed softly, and the plane dipped as though it had taken a sudden breath. A ripple of unease passed through the rows. The engines adjusted, their pitch changing, stretching the silence thin. A second jolt followed, sharper this time, sending a plastic cup tumbling from a tray table and splashing water across a nervous pair of knees. The woman in Ada stirred but didn't wake. Her hand tightened instinctively against the armrest, muscle memory responding before thought could catch up. Outside, the sky had darkened, clouds thickening like heavy curtains being drawn shut. The intercom crackled once, then again, the sound cutting through the cabin with a brittle edge. The captain's voice followed, steady but carrying something underneath it, an urgency carefully wrapped in calm professionalism. Passengers leaned forward unconsciously, as if proximity might make the words clearer. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice said, "we're experiencing some unexpected conditions and a minor systems issue. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." A pause, too long to be nothing. Then the voice returned, quieter somehow, more deliberate. "If there happens to be anyone on board with advanced flight or combat aviation experience, please press your call button." A hush fell so suddenly it felt like the air itself had been switched off. Eyes widened, hands froze mid-motion. A few people laughed nervously, unsure if they had heard correctly. Someone whispered, "Did he say combat?" Another voice muttered a prayer. The child across the aisle began to cry, sensing the shift before understanding it. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then slowly the woman in 8A opened her eyes. They were sharp and clear, alert in a way sleep never truly dulls when it has been learned in short, restless fragments. She didn't panic. She didn't gasp. She simply inhaled, steady and deep, as if grounding herself in the moment. Her gaze flicked upward to the overhead panel, then toward the aisle, then forward, calculating distance, sound, vibration, everything at once. She did not reach for the call button. Not yet. She sat still, listening, the captain's words replayed in her mind, stripped of tone and emotion, leaving only meaning. Advanced flight, combat aviation, not recreational pilots, not simulators, not theory. Experience earned in air that tried to kill you. A faint tremor passed through the plane again, longer this time, a shudder that made the overhead bins creak. A flight attendant moved down the aisle with practiced calm, but the tightness in their jaw gave everything away. Another attendant whispered urgently near the front galley. The woman in 8A closed her eyes for half a second, not in fear but in memory. There were deserts where the sky burned white and the horizon melted into itself. There were nights lit by tracers, where instruments mattered more than instincts, and instincts mattered more than breath. There were moments when trust meant survival, and hesitation meant loss. She had learned long ago how to make fear quiet, how to fold it neatly and set it aside until later. Around her, people were beginning to whisper openly now, A man across the aisle fumbled with his seatbelt. Someone laughed too loudly, trying to pretend this was all some kind of dramatic, turbulent story they would tell later. The intercom clicked again. "If you have this experience," the captain said, voice careful, "please make yourself known to a flight attendant." That was when she moved. Not abruptly, not dramatically. She reached up, pressed the call button once, and let her hand fall back to her lap. A small green light flickered on above her seat. The movement went unnoticed by most, but the flight attendant halfway down the aisle saw it and paused. Their eyes met for half a second, and in that glance, something passed that required no words, recognition, relief. A question answered. The attendant approached, lowering their voice. "How can I help you?" The woman leaned slightly closer, her tone calm, measured. "I heard the announcement." The attendant swallowed. "Do you have experience?" A nod. Small. Certain. There was no boasting in it, no pride. Just fact. The attendant's shoulders dropped a fraction, as if a weight had been lifted, though the situation itself remained heavy. "The captain may want to speak with you." "I understand." As she stood, the people nearby noticed. They watched her move into the aisle, her posture straight, her steps sure. Someone whispered, "Is she a pilot?" Another voice murmured, "She doesn't look like," and trailed off, unsure of what that even meant. She passed them without looking back. As she followed the attendant toward the front, the plane shuddered again, harder this time. A gasp rippled through the cabin. A child cried out. The woman reached out instinctively, steadying herself against a seat, then continued forward as if the turbulence were nothing more than uneven pavement. Inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was taut with focus. Instruments glowed. Alarms chimed softly, insistently. The captain turned as she entered, eyes scanning her quickly, taking in posture, calm, readiness. "Thank you for coming," came the greeting, direct and without ceremony. "We're dealing with a system failure affecting stability. We have redundancy, but the weather is making it complicated." She nodded, stepping closer, eyes already tracking the panels, the readouts, the subtle vibrations underfoot. What's responding, and what isn't? The question alone shifted the air. It wasn't curiosity, it was assessment. As they spoke, the plane lurched again, this time sharper, a collective gasp echoing from the cabin behind the reinforced door. The woman braced herself, hand finding a rail, body adjusting without thought. Her focus sharpened, senses narrowing to the rhythm of the aircraft, the sound of the engines, the faint tremor that spoke of imbalance. Outside, clouds churned like restless seas. Inside, time stretched. Minutes passed in clipped exchanges, technical language woven with instinctive understanding. She listened more than she spoke, absorbing the situation, mapping it in her mind. There was no panic in her movements, only purpose. Beyond the cockpit door, the passengers waited, fear thickening with every jolt. Some prayed, some gripped hands, some stared straight ahead, refusing to imagine what might come next. And somewhere among them, a child whispered, "Mom, are we going to be okay?" The answer, still unspoken, hung in the air as the woman in Ada stood steady, her presence a quiet anchor in a sky that had begun to test every soul aboard. And just as she reached for the console to point out something the instruments weren't showing yet, the plane dipped again, harder than before. Lights flickering, a collective breath catching as gravity seemed to loosen its hold, and the moment stretched thin, trembling on the edge of whatever came next.